Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. We're here tonight for the next 2 hours. It's August 2nd. We're running into September. We're blowing through this year like there's no tomorrow. I'm glad you're all here. Folks are in the chat room. If you're not in the chat room, you need to run over there and check these guys out, keep them straight, and gals, folks that are over there. Are you signed up to receive our weekly rundown of topics? It's a once-a-week email sent every Saturday. It works you to the topics that we're going to be discussing. To get the email, all you have to do is email me. Email thebibleforum@gmail.com and just say, I want to get the email. We'll send you the email and we won't say anything else. We're not selling anything. We're not sending anything. Nothing else comes out unless it's just almost the end of the world. It's something I think you really need to know. In which case I'd probably attach it to the weekly rundown of topics. We've got a lot of things to talk about tonight. Chief among them is what I'm calling voter fraud. This comes from judicialwatch.com. If you're not checking some of these websites out, you're missing stuff. Now maybe you don't want to check them out. You don't want all that stuff coming into your inbox, and you'll go get a headache like I do every day. But the U.S. and Israeli peace plan with the Palestinians is back on the table. It's on the table, but the Palestinians don't want it. You know what the Palestinians want. They want the West Bank. Period. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them. We want the West Bank. The U.S. has offered Hamas $15 billion, billion with a B rather, in aid if they would disarm. And of course they say, no. You do know that Hamas is designated as a terrorist group by the United States, by Israel, and by several other countries of the world. The 2007 coup against President Abbas has effectively split the Palestinian area into two political entities, creating even more instability. And all efforts to promote reconciliation have failed. There was also an attack on northern Israel recently by Hezbollah, a terror group, in Lebanon. They did that before the Thursday night beginning the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Adha. I don't know what that means, but that was a week ago this past Thursday. So it's all, come Thursday, it'll be 2 weeks. Things are happening over there in the Middle East. Things are getting a lot, dicey? We'll see how that goes. Talking about dicey, we've got a Democrat convention coming up. It's scheduled to occur in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is one of our most liberal cities in the United States. Earlier this month, the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission ordered that the use of tear gas and pepper spray to disperse protesters be curtailed. Don't want to do that anymore. So more than 100 police departments in that area, departments that were planning to help protect the convention, have withdrawn. They've torn up the agreements. They're not going to be a part of it. Also, a former Bernie Sanders supporter recently highlighted 4 reasons why Biden would be a mistake. They said the economy could come back just enough, that polling could be wrong again, that Trump can campaign all day long, and Biden's got his own problems. There are some people in the Democrat Party, higher-ups, who are paying attention and can think. This is not going to work well. Did you watch the John Lewis funeral this past week? They played it live. I was in complete sympathy with the family. I think John Lewis, being as far the other side politically of where I am as you can be, was in many respects one of the more noble men in leadership today. I didn't agree with his social issues, but he stood for principle, and it didn't seem to matter what it cost. And he also paid a pretty high price for most of his life. He was a man you didn't hear about in the gossip pages, a charactered, committed man of color growing up in an overtly racist city in the 20s, 30s, 40s. But at his funeral this week, former President Barack Obama thought that it was appropriate to rehearse the politics. He said, "Bull Connor may be gone, but today we witnessed with our own eyes police officers kneeling on the necks of black Americans. George Wallace may be gone, but we can witness our federal government sending agents to use tear gas and batons against peaceful demonstrators. We may no longer have to guess the number of jelly beans in a jar in order to cast a ballot, but even as we sit here, there are those in power who are doing their darndest to discourage people from voting by closing polling locations and targeting minorities and students with restricted ID laws and attacking our voting rights with surgical precision. None of which is, strictly speaking, true. We are painfully aware that voting in this country has become a business. In many states, the voting records have been corrupted. The process thereby is corrupted. North Carolina comes to mind. And there have been noted black leaders who have stood up and condemned former President Obama. Not cool. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says the HEALS Act, H-E-A-L-S, the HEALS Act is a $1 trillion proposal that would give qualified individuals another stimulus check, would renew unemployment benefits at a reduced rate, and provide money for schools to reopen for in-person instruction. He said this is more than fair, more than bipartisan. The framework is set for Democrats to engage with. The Senate Majority Leader said it had been reported that Pelosi won't let the bill go forward unless more unemployment benefits continue to be paid out. No money for schools, no money for households, no second round of the PPP, no more money for hospitals or testing, nothing at all, unless we continue to pay people more not to work, McConnell said. To put it gently, that is a completely unhinged position, he said. Keep in mind when you hear Republican leaders discuss what's going on in Congress, the words are immensely different. They are always strident and combative. That's what we're told. It's not that Republicans are exaggerating, but that we're apparently not hearing what's actually being said back and forth. There are things happening in Congress. Nancy Pelosi has said she will not allow a bill to be even put on the floor for debate if it's not something she agrees to. And later on she will complain that the Republicans were dragging their feet and people are suffering. That's politics in the 21st century. Do Black Lives Matter? Not in Portland, Oregon. According to the Washington Times, Hamp, age 43, is accused of stabbing a Trump supporter and videographer by the name of Drew Duncombe. Doing this during one of the nightly fracases in Portland, Oregon this past weekend. A news release from the Portland Police Bureau said Hamp was arrested in the early hours of Saturday morning outside the city's federal courthouse, which has been the locus for much of the more enthusiastic protesting these past weeks. The article said, quote, for several hours a large crowd participated in criminal activity, which included throwing projectiles, lighting fires, and vandalism focused at government facilities and employees. It went on to say members of this large group had moved away from the mass, and a conflict ensued, provoking the need for emergency responders. Police arrived and found one male suspect held down by several bystanders and one male victim with a stab wound. Police attempted to create a crime scene but were unable to do so due to the aggressive crowd behavior and the lack of community cooperation. The victim was transported to an area hospital with a serious injury, and the suspect was arrested. Peaceful protests in Portland, Oregon, for burning the flag and burning Bibles. Any questions? What do Americans think of Congress? As lawmakers dither on a new rescue package, Gallup finds that Americans' approval of Congress has fallen back to its normal, what they consider abysmal level. And that is 18%. An 18% approval. That's after hitting 20-year highs back in April and May. Congressional approval in July was down at least 10 points across the board since May. Democrats' approval fell the most, from 39 to 20%. Republicans dropped from 24 to 14%. And independents from 32 to 21. President Trump's approval in Gallup held steady from June to July at 41%. That's down from 49% earlier this year, when the economy was in good shape and Trump was enjoying a post-impeachment bounce. In Chicago, Chief of Police Carmen Best, speaking before the Seattle City Council, reported that the contents of a van impounded during the riots last Saturday included bombs, spiked strips, bear spray, and lasers. And that these items were being handed out to people as tools of protest. You do know that's not protest, right? That's called terrorism. And more federal agents need to be employed as a result of this, which they will then complain about. Do you see the cycle? Are you registered to vote? Nationwide, 378 counties have more voter registrations than cities living in those counties and old enough to vote. That is, counties where registration rates exceed 100%. These 378 counties combined had about 2.5 million registrations more than the 100% registration mark. It's the 21st century. We did this back in the old days. Apparently we're still doing it. The city of Seattle is in King County, and that county's executive's office is moving ahead with plans to abolish prisons. Do you know why people are moving out of liberal states and liberal cities? A leaked email published by Christopher Rufo, contributing editor at City Journal, shows active plans to reduce both adult and juvenile detention and close the county jail in Seattle. The juvenile detention center would be converted to house other programs by 2025. According to Rufo, this plan will eliminate 60% of the county's jail capacity. Seattle City Council has a sufficient majority to support the effort. At least 7 of the 9 members agree to slash the police department budget by 50%. Mayor Jenny Durkin has said she would veto this drastic cut, supporting the chief of police. However, Durkin is committed to cutting $76 million of the $400 million police budget. Oddly, this so-called Summer of Love mayor may be the only bulwark against complete, total insanity. It was recently, talking about mid-July of this year, 2020, that it was reported that Bill Gates will soon start testing the first version of his program to identify, via face scan, hand scan, etc., identify, number, vaccinate, and create a digital vaccination record of everyone on Earth. Gates plans to start in remote, low-income areas in West Africa, then move on to Europe, Asia, and finally the US. His biggest concern is not creating a vaccine. His biggest concern is not the technology or anything like it. His biggest problem is people refusing to be vaccinated and having the government deny them the right to hold a job, the right to leave their house, the right to buy or sell. Would they actually do that? Yes, they would actually do that if they wanted to. And now they would have visible evidence of everyone's identity. Some stores, Walmart for example, restaurants and so forth, are now denying people the right to enter if they're not wearing a mask. Some doctors' offices and hospitals will not let people enter without a temperature check. Some cities are passing laws to prevent people from moving around if they're not wearing a mask. This is the beginning of not letting people buy and sell if they have not taken the mark of the beast. This week I read that the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, a man by the name of Klaus Schwab, he said every country from China to the United States must participate, and every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed. In short, he said, we need a great reset of capitalism. We're less than 6 months away from a demand by powerful globalists that the life of everyone on Earth be changed forever. They will do this through currency. John MacArthur made news this past week. He's out in California, you know where he is. But he said in a sermon, apparently last Sunday, that his church will continue to meet in person despite a state-mandated ban on such gatherings, saying that Christ, not the state, is the head of the church. He is quoted as saying, I can't think of anything worse than to put an entire world into fear and then shut down the only place they could go to have their fear finally and completely removed. The death rate is 0.02%. That means 99.98% of people will not die from this. He added that half the deaths are among individuals over the age of 80. And that this just does not equate to the response this society has had. It's out of proportion. MacArthur's sermon explained the role of government and the responsibility of the Christian. He also spotlighted Daniel 6 and the story of Daniel praying to God despite a ban on prayers. Praying to the God who sustains him. the government banning prayers to any being or individual except the king. MacArthur quoted data on deaths from alcohol, cigarettes, and abortion, and noted all three remain legal.